My name's Steven Malpass. So I got into games. What was the question? Sorry.
Who are you?
Who are you? Yes, Steven Malpass. Sorry. Next question.
Well, it's the first question that I give everyone on the podcast. So let's try and do one of my podcasts in half an hour.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
Oh, I'm
Cool.
up for the challenge.
Okay.
Yeah.
Earliest gaming memory.
Oh,
Let's
right.
roll.
We're going that far
Yeah,
back.
we're going straight in.
Okay. It was, what was it? It was Space Invaders. Is that right?
I
Space
don't know.
Invaders. Yeah. It's a holiday in Jersey, 1978.
Wow. Showing your age.
Yeah, I thought it was Asteroids, but that was actually 1979. It was a different holiday. But Space Invaders. I was on holiday in Jersey, and it was, you know, old hotels back then used to have a games room at the other, at the back of the sort of gardens, like a shed, with some old arcade machines in and a table tennis table, that kind of thing. And it had Space Invaders in there, and that was my first gaming memory. Yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah.
So how? I suppose in your case, let's not talk about the how you got into the industry because you're one of those really lucky ones that just got a phone call out of the blue one day. But come
Quite
on.
like that.
Tell us about your first role because it's so interesting, and you are one of the, from a total fangirl point of view, one of the few people I know that have worked with Nintendo, which blows my mind. So let's talk about that.
Yeah. I did get into games right from the get-go. That was kind of had like a normal office job for like 10 years, and then won't go into it. But ended up, a friend of mine got a job at Rare in Twycross in the Midlands as a games tester. Kind of like by way of doing FAQ guides, walkthroughs and stuff for games for a games magazine called Total, which was quite a big thing in the 90s. Some nods and appreciation. Future Publishing, they do Edge. So he applied for games tester job at Rare, and I was like, you're never going to get a job at Rare because it's Rare, and he got it. And of course I was gutted with jealousy. And then 2 years later he called me up out of the blue and said, there's some testing jobs going here. And I was like, well, you have to relocate to the Midlands to be a games tester. That's, because the money wasn't that great, let's face it. And he said, oh no, I'm a games designer now. That's kind of how everybody gets into games design from Rare. So I went up and had an interview. Basically just said how much I love games and what games I liked, and luckily one of the guys who was interviewing me was into Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy VII was about to be released. This is like
So long ago.
Yeah, this is a long time. This is August 1997 when I had the interview. So anyway, they offered me the job as a games tester. But I said at the time, I said, look, well, I only want to take this if I can take the path into games design. I have no idea how you do it. It's kind of a bit of a dark art, but I kind of felt like I spent all my spare income on Super NES games, and I knew that's kind of, well, if I'm ever going to get out of this sort of dead-end job that I was in at the time, I was in going to university because I didn't know what I wanted to do. This is the path I want to take. So they offered me the job and I took it, and so I started on the 1st of September '97 as a games tester at Rare. Key first slide. And that was my first game that I tested. Diddy Kong Racing. So this hadn't been announced at that time, and the day I started was the day before the testers started testing that game. So I almost didn't go back on day 2. I thought, what the hell is this? This is a right baptism of fire. But anyway, I stuck it out, and it was 6 weeks of sort of fairly late nights testing that, and it got released, I think, November '97, and did quite well. And then when that was out of the way, this one came into testing, Banjo-Kazooie, which was a sort of 3D platform game heavily inspired by Super Mario 64, which had come out the year before. When did that come out? 96, that's right, it was a launch title for the N64. So spent quite a few months testing this. Bills would come into testing, and then when we had nothing to test, you could kind of pretty much play anything you wanted. So I think I finished Final Fantasy VII purely in work time, sort of 100 hours.
Times have changed.
Yeah,
I don't think you can get
yeah.
away with that anymore.
Yeah,
Nice idea, though.
Where am I going with this?
Well.
Oh yeah, so
That's you.
we have a sip of cider. So
This is the most informal thing that's ever
I'm
happened on a
enjoying
Rocket
it.
Jump,
Do
right?
you need a
I'm
fire,
so
sorry?
sorry. You got one. We did with a pint. Oh my god.
So
I
anyway,
don't even know what that
during
was. Right away, but-
testing time of Banjo-Kazooie, it eventually got released. Summer of '98. There you go. And I remember that there's a guy called Greg Mayles who's still the design director at Rare actually, he was the lead designer on Banjo-Kazooie, and then the head, the team leader, very close to the Stampers, who are obviously the founders of Rare. And after we finished testing that, he sent like this little task for all the testers, like, oh, if we were to do a sequel to Banjo-Kazooie, you know, what would you change? You know, what didn't you like about the game? What would you improve? You know, any new moves that the characters would have, that kind of thing. And I thought, maybe there's something in this. So anyway, I did this like 2-page document of like things that I liked, things I didn't like, you know, things I would change, that kind of thing. And then sort of forgot about it for a few weeks. And then, long story short, I got the call down to the boardroom, and the Stamper brothers said, "Oh, Greg would like you to go on to the Banjo team and be his like assistant designer." Because there were only 2 designers on that game, Greg being the lead designer, and the other designer then moved on to what became Donkey Kong 64, I think. So I sort of moved over then to fill his shoes. Yeah,
it's a valuable lesson within the games industry. I think that we, like, so many of us started in test and haven't ended up remaining in test. Like I feel like it's a really harsh thing to say, don't turn something down just because it's not for you. I mean, obviously, if it's cleaning toilets at a games company, then turn it down. But like, just like, testing is a really good way to get into the industry, and I think a lot of people overlook it. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I'm not putting that avenue down whatsoever. I just knew kind of it wasn't really for me long term. Because I know guys that, like, there was one guy there who's still there in testing at Red. Yeah. And he never wanted to move. It's like, Dave Wong, his name is. He's credited on both these games. And I always ask him, do you not want to get into design? No, this is like my perfect job. You know, he just had that mentality of, because when you were doing this, you know, all my old workmates, they'd ask you, oh, what are you doing now? And you tell them, oh, you play computer games for a living. Said, no, I play the same game over and over again, trying to break it. 5 weeks. And it was fine. I always liked just taking it and like trying to suggest ways I could improve it. I didn't like just running against the background to try and fall out the map. That drove me mad. It wasn't for me. You know, so I knew I could only sort of contribute so much to that kind of thing. So anyway, so this became the sequel to Banjo-Kazooie, imaginatively titled Banjo-Tooie. Doesn't really make sense, but anyway. So next one. Here we go. So anyway, partway through, so when we started, I moved on the team summer '98, and eventually came out summer 2000. It was originally meant to come out the end of '99. And of course, as Lauran said, you know, we were making games for Nintendo. You know, at that time, Nintendo owned 49% of Rare. A lot of people don't really appreciate that. But they were like, well, we need more time. And they were like, yeah, that's fine, just make the game you want to make. And even in the end, actually, one of the levels got cut. There is a finished design like this for the final level, which never saw the light of day. I'm not sure. Did you draw these? No. So, well, this is the first level I had a stab at designing, which is the factory level. Became known as Grunty Industries. So I kind of tried to push myself as much as I could, really, and it ended up being pretty complex. It was like a multi-tiered affair. So then I handed this map, this poorly sort of drawn map, to Greg on a bit of paper, and then he sort of, oh, this is really good, you know, for a first attempt. Caveat there. And then he sort of redrew it then in his style, and then would pass that on to the rest of the team. Because you got to remember, like back then, there were no sort of design tools. You didn't have like Unity and Unreal like you have now, where you can quickly sort of build stuff yourself. It was all done on paper, and then these would be given to like a graphics artist to mock up, and then the programmers would like literally hard code everything. You know, there was no scripting back then. Like, if you were lucky, you'd have like a really primitive in-game editor that you'd use an N64 pad to sort of put things down in the game. We did that between us, the two. But it was mostly sort of you would just sit there with a coder or a background artist and sort of do that, make that sort of change. Let's try this, that kind of thing, and just sort of go from there. These are just I robbed these from the internet. These are from like some Brady Games guide, I think. So that's what ended up being a map of all the levels of that level. Yeah. That's far too complicated.
It is quite intricate. Yeah, because what you got to remember was that the process back then was like, well, we got this world for this game. You know, there are 10 jigsaw pieces. You know, the player's got to perform 10 tasks to sort of earn them, and go away for 2 weeks and think of puzzle ideas, that kind of thing. and then spend another 2 weeks sort of drawing a map. Eventually you'd come back with a finished design that would hopefully make sense. And then the next level, I sort of did half of that. It's like a fire and ice world. I think I did the icy side, and Greg did the fiery side, and then they were sort of the two halves of a level. Then this was the final level in the game. This was I pretty much did on my own again. That one, Cloud Cuckoo Land for the win. And these are all the sort of bosses that were in the game. And this top one here, actually, this was like a sort of welding torch in the factory level. And how that came about was I'd just had an idea for like an enemy. It was like literally a welding torch with eyes, and I thought that's really shit. And they threw it in the bin. And then we were thinking of what enemies would we have in this factory level, something. And I kind of got this bit of paper out of the bin and gave it to Greg. So I drew this, and he looked at wiped the bit, the water, whatever was on it. It was all still got the bit of paper with water stains on it actually. And he said, that could be a really cool boss. And it ended up being like one of the best bosses in the game. So yeah, just goes to show, no matter if you have a really shitty idea, just don't throw anything away, because someone might see something else in it and interpret it in a different way.
I think that's good advice. If you have a really shitty idea,
literally write everything down. Just write everything down, and then give it to someone else and say it's shit in it, and hopefully they'll say, oh no, well it'll be mostly shit, but that bit's quite good. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Do carry on.
Let's go next. Then that ended up being all the characters in the game. It was quite.
I didn't realise there were that many.
There were shitloads. Yeah. There's Banjo Kazooie down here. Yeah.
Banjo just looks so irrelevant.
Yeah. No, it was great. It was a lot of fun, that game. And we'd sort of write all the cheesy dialogue. You probably have like a proper writer these days to sort of write most of it. A lot of innuendos. A lot of it was trying to get as many innuendos into the game without, and trying. Hopefully that innuendo, when it got to the other side of the Atlantic, would kind of be totally innocent, and it'd be like, which gladly was the case with most of it. All right, so that came out 2000, and then so I kind of worked on this for a bit as well. For once I think design got ahead of the rest of the team on Banjo, and then I was sort of seconded to the Perfect Dark team, which had been obviously the GoldenEye 64 team while they were doing this. So I spent a few months on that. Ended up doing the voice for this character here, which was basically a Yoda impression pitched up.
You can't say, come on.
I'm not going to do it.
Come on.
You talked a little bit like this.
Oh my god. Sorry I asked.
Yes, that came out in 2000, did really well. I don't know, probably, I imagine some of you have played that. Right, this. So I didn't work on this directly, that was like as a designer. So there was a game in development called Dinosaur Planet. It was the team that did Diddy Kong Racing, so they would have started at the end of '97 to work on Dinosaur Planet, which is a bit of like a Zelda rip-off, because Ocarina of Time had come out in '98, so obviously that blew us all away. So the cynical approach was to, let's just copy what Nintendo do, let's copy a Zelda game. Don't think we quite pulled it off, but I ended up doing the voice of the main character in that game, who was called Sabo, who was a wolf, I think. And then, of course, some years later, probably 2000, 2001, got the rumour that Nintendo wanted to make Dinosaur Planet into a Star Fox game. So then it became Star Fox Adventures, and so I then ended up becoming Fox. So they kept my voice in the game rather than getting the Fox McCloud guy in. So that's how I ended up being Fox McCloud.
And it gave all of us at Lionhead, when we did work together, so Steve and I worked together at Lionhead with a few other dotted around, I can see them. Me, used to go to the internet, find a ridiculous Fox quote, and then just keep saying it to him until he registered that I was taking the mic.
Yeah.
But I won't. I mean, I'll make you do the voice later, but you can keep it in for now.
Well, I did try and find a video to embed into this, but no, they're all just YouTube links. But
that's a shame.
Yeah, it's basically me just doing a British American accent.
It's pretty good though. I don't like to compliment you, but
good,
it is pretty good. Yeah, it's great.
Thanks.
I enjoy it.
Yeah, and so I found this.
Oh, that's
So obviously at some point somebody has put this in front of me and said, can you sign this? I don't remember who it was, whatever, but it did happen every now and again. Someone would just contact me through Facebook or Twitter out of the blue and say, can I send you something for an autograph?
That's amazing.
Alright, so the next game, so this is quite an interesting game. So this was the same team that made Banjo, and sort of opposite of another big, gigantic, sprawling, epic 3D platform game, will make something that's just really light-hearted, sort of Scooby-Doo-ish, and sort of completely linear. You know, it's basically in a haunted house, and you were going from room to room. You couldn't deviate from a path. It was a fixed path, and you were just kind of like finding everyday objects like snooker cues, and then smashing skeletons to bits with them. Brilliant. But it was at the time when, so we all thought that Nintendo would exercise the right to buy Rare outright. They chose not to do that for whatever reason. I do remember they did come around, some chaps from Nintendo did come around and did speak to me at one point. Yeah, so that might have had something to do with it. I've only just made that connection. But obviously, and I think Activision as well were in talks, I think that has come out since. But obviously Microsoft ended up buying Rare outright.
The jewel in Microsoft's crown for
Yeah.
a long time.
And so this is, it's a bit of a double-edged sword. So we were making this for GameCube. We were like sort of halfway through development. Actually, I remember 9/11. I was sat in my office working on this game. Everyone remembers where they were when that
Just had
happened.
my first day at college. Shows how old you are, doesn't
Yeah.
it? Sorry, it's too easy. I'm sorry.
So anyway, this ended up having, just by sheer coincidence, being the first game released by Rare while they were part of Microsoft. So as a consequence, it had like an enormous amount of sort of attention on it. And of course, when it came out, people were like, "What the hell is this?" You know? So it was kind of split people, even though it had the little thing at the bottom from the creators of the Donkey Kong Country and Banjo-Kazooie team, which was the same team that made both those games, that made this. So it kind of like split people. I think Edge gave it a 6 out of 10. Other I think Eurogamer was a bit kinder to it. But since it's been released, like especially as part of the Rare Replay compilation, this has aged like so well. I urge you, if you've got that, to give this another go, because it was sort of stylized, it was slightly cell shaded, I think, in look. It's kind of
like
other games of the era, like some of the Halos, like Halo 2's around about the same time, don't look anywhere near as good as this. It's like kind of weird.
But I think a good message in general would be to go back and pick up Rare Replay anyway. If anyone hasn't checked it, it's just, there's so much in there.
There's
the amount of games that those guys got out was insane.
Yeah, well, just the amount of sort of, hours and blood, sweat and tears and passion and, tears again and blood again that went into those games. Yeah, it's incredible.
It is amazing.
It's quite a document. Anyway, so that has since gone on to achieve somewhat of like a cult status. I think in like all the reviews of Rare Replay when it came out, they were like, "Oh, this is aged really well, this game." Yeah, so that's good. That's one of the maps that I didn't draw that. That was Greg actually who drew that one. Some of the characters I did voices for. I did about 7 voices in this one. But again, it was all sort of grunts and groans and gibberish, and that it wasn't actual dialogue. And then this character here. So, the creepy groundskeeper who does. So I got the idea. You probably appreciate this. I don't know if any of you ever remember Blackadder's Christmas Carol, where Blackadder would go, "Well, peel my tangerines," based by Stephen Puddings. Right? It was kind of inspired by that. So every time he appeared, he would precede anything he was going to say with one of these exclamations, which became known as Fiddlerisms because his name was Fiddlesworth. Rub my radish, pet my fiddler. Measure my marrow is actually one of the ones that we got asked to take out, so that didn't make it. But
Pet my piglet?
That made it in, yeah. Choke my chicken, but you couldn't get that away with that, or bash my beef.
No, you were just saying rude things.
No, they were all. I got still at the word dot with all these fiddlerisms on it. Yeah.
I think I'm blushing.
So then like 5 years passed. This project, it kind of went through. It's kind of like an old time. Well, for me personally, Rare, because it started off as like a remake of the first Banjo-Kazooie game. It was going to be for the Xbox 360, but it was going to be remade as like a multiplayer 4-player game, and that soon kind of got canned, and then changed direction to something else, and that also got canned, and then became well, so the Stampers had the idea for this, the idea of like finding blocks and building your own vehicles, that kind of thing. Yeah. Kind of like Minecraft before they stole the idea off us.
Have I mocked you for that before? Is that why you're being really sheepish with it? I'm sorry. I'm the worst friend.
But anyway, so they had this concept of, we spent ages developing this sort of UI where you could stitch all these blocks together and build vehicles, and they would actually behave, real physics and how you would expect them to behave. And then someone had the idea of, we'll make that a banjo game. So of course, it then became this Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts, which kind of split. Again, fans, because real dyed-in-the-wool fans, were expecting Banjo-Kazooie 3, didn't get it, and of course the sort of other people were like, oh, it's great, they're trying something different. You can't please everybody all the time.
Yeah. Well, it was a departure, I guess. It just added new elements to it.
I guess finally, Banjo 3 has kind of been made by Playtonic as a ukulele. I mean, we saw it at EGX, right, and it is basically Banjo-Kazooie 3, which is exactly what people paid $2 million for as a Kickstarter, so that's great, that's looking amazing.
We should all absolutely support that because Microsoft are letting them do it. Like, that's such a huge deal.
No, I'm amazed, it's so blatant, I'm amazed that, Microsoft haven't gone, no, you're not doing that, but, good for them.
Absolutely, yeah, it looks great.
Yeah, in the name of, art, I suppose. Alright, so on this game, it was like a hub town called Showdown Town, and I was given the task of designing this because it was the part of the game that was most like the previous Banjo game. So this is like my initial map, which is when was that from?
2008. That was 2007.
No, they're both 2007.
Oh.
Yeah, that's when I drew the map. The game came out in 2008. Right, there you go. Yeah, so that's again like as I said, everything was drawn on paper, back then, and then that was given to like a background artist, and they would just model it, directly in Maya, and I spent ages just sitting with the artist, just trying to figure out the scale, dropping a character into the world, just making sure everything was the right sort of scale. I mean, obviously it's a lot easier to do that now with like Unity and Unreal. You can just kind of do it yourself, even if you're not particularly technical. It's quite easy to do. If I can do it, anybody can do it. So there's that, and that's the kind of finished map. And these are, I just found these on an old flash drive. These are some screenshots that I took at the time from the in-game editor of the world sort of being built up. Yeah, not particularly pretty there, but then this is the final thing. So these are some screenshots, yeah. And again, and this is I completely forgotten about this. So this is one of the actual game levels. So they were all the levels in this game were all set in sort of called game globes. So everything was like in a sphere, which is why they're all circular. And this level, this was the last level to be designed. And as we were up against it time-wise, we had to kind of cut it. And I completely forgot that I designed this until Greg tweeted it last year on the back of Rare Replay. I was like, oh shit, I completely forgot about that level. But again, I found this on that same flash drive. So this is the first time I've ever actually shown this to anybody outside of Rare. She was okay to do so. We'll see, but I suppose. So yeah, again, started on paper, and there's like this one here is just to show which way the slopes are going. And there would always be as well, instead of like a plan view, there'd always be like some isometric sketches of like little areas to kind of try and show. I mean, I'm not an artist, but I get the idea. You just got to get the idea across. No, I mean what you can't see here is the original bit of paper, which is done in pencil, and it's practically you can see through it because it's been like rubbed out so many times. You don't just draw this first time. This is just the finished project, finished thing gone over in marker, and then that's just that annotated, just saying what everything is. It's quite cool, actually. Yeah, there's a railroad going through it. Never mind. Oh well. All right. And then so that was my last. That was my last game at Rare. Actually, I worked on a little bit on the Kinect Sports when that started to come out. But anyway, I sort of left the industry for a couple of years, and then when I came back, I ended up on this Rabbids project here, which was interesting. That's where I met some other Lionhead people who were yet to go to Lionhead. And then I moved to the Microsoft studio in Soho, where we made this project here, which was actually like quite a really enjoyable project to work on, because it was new technology, and you were making something for a completely different audience, like kids. And it ended up with a BAFTA. That's the logo. Nominated for 2, winner of 1 BAFTA. Yeah.
That's cool.
That was good. Yeah, that was really cool.
This is concerning, though. What?
Well, so it was.
Elmo's own head being thrown back at.
So this is brilliant, right? We used to have UR testing with like get kids in, families in, and it would be like Grover would be there. It was all filmed like they went out to New York to the children's television workshop with all the Sesame actors and stuff to shoot all this stuff, and it would be like Grover's dropped his box of coconuts, and they'd say, "Oh, throw me a coconut back," kind of thing. So you do a throwing gesture, and it would be branching video, so it would just trigger the video of the coconut flying through the air, landing in the box, and it was like, whoa, that's amazing. And when you see the look on the kid's face when they think they've done it, it's pretty cool. So yeah. No, and then this, yeah. So Lionhead, obviously. So I was kind of in talks with these guys for a couple of months before I joined. So they soon realised that they needed a hub town for this game, and because of my work on Showdown Town, they thought I'd be a pretty good fit for it. So that became a town called Bright Lodge. So when I joined the company at the end of 2013, this was kind of up in the stairwell, wasn't it? Plastered on the stairwell, and I saw this. I thought, whoa, what is that? That already looks like an iconic location. I'm like, well, this is like a concept sketch that we've got of this town. And they'd actually built a version of the town, and it was nothing like this. It was just a town, just in the middle of some hills. And we're like, well, yeah, we're not really happy with it. And so I kind of saw this, and I thought, well, let's have a crack and try and make this work. Let's not change it for the sake of it. Because if you can make that work, it's going to be amazing. So anyway, so that was the seed was kind of sown there. So if you can go to the next one. So this, So what you see here on the left is my map of Bright Lodge. And then what you see on the right is what ended up kind of being built in the game and then was drawn over by Mike McCarthy, who was like the amazing artist, Mr. Fable, pretty much. And you can see, so it was kind of this main island here, is what's built here. These other areas, they were all planned to be sort of future additions, but obviously never sadly made it. But it's it's not kind of too dissimilar. So the idea was that it was this sort of town built on this lump of rock in the middle of a lake on the edge of a waterfall, like 2 bridges either side. I think that took about 3 weeks to come up with that.
But this was like, and I know I've said this before, but before I'd even met Steve at work, this was plastered up on windows like it was some kind of holy document that we all had to stick to. And I'd been in the industry like 4 or 5 years by that point, and I'd never seen anyone hand draw a map.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, there were all the level builders at Lionhead. I mean, they were all pretty, adept at using like Unreal and just get stuck into a bit of landscape and moulding it. And that's fine. It's just that, I'd always kind of learned this way to just start on a bit of paper. I don't know. I'd always been obsessed with maps as a kid. And we kind of talked about this before. Like my dad was like an amateur geologist, whatever, and he'd bring maps, and I would just look at these. Before we had colour TV in Wales, where I was from, and I would just try and imagine what these places would actually look like. So I'd always just draw maps of made-up places. That was just what I did. But I just like to start with a map and then think, well, you start from there, and then you build stuff. And it might change, but at least you kind of
you've got a base.
That's just kind of my catharsis, is to just spend 3 weeks just drawing stuff on paper. Then I think, well, I've thought it through rather than just blindly going down some corridor, and that might be in the wrong direction. But if we go to the next one. So then I eventually did get stuck into Unreal. As you can see, I'm not an artist by any means, but you can build some land and put some cubes down, like primitive shapes, and then you can drop a character in and run around. And then from that you can just get an idea of height and sight lines and scale and all that kind of thing, before it's even gone to an artist to sort of mess with. So that process is, nowadays it's just a lot easier. Yeah. So these are just screenshots that I took, through development.
I'm so glad you did.
Yeah, I had hundreds of them, and these are just a few, obviously.
So those, I'm sure everyone, most people know that Lionhead's gone, but obviously Legends went with it. We were so close to launching that game.
It was a closed beta, like it was pretty much finished, you know. You're still not over it really.
Too soon.
It is too soon. It's only been 6 months.
I mean,
How long has it been?
since March, April, it finally shut. Yeah. This is just an illustration of how it ended up kind of looking there in the editor. These are all screenshots right out of Unreal.
I haven't seen it since February. This is breaking my heart.
Yeah, we keep going then. There was some
No,
full...
don't.
Oh, there you go. That's from the famous sort of. That's when we announced, showed it at E3 when you were on stage. When was that? 2014.
2014.
Yeah, there you go. That was the camera sequence. The kind of.
It was, yeah, swooped in.
Yeah, well, that was me that kind of did that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So that was just right at that time. I just took a screenshot. So yeah, these are from right at the end of the project. Well, just before I left. I left just before they shut the studio. I didn't know it was coming. I get asked that all the time. You knew, didn't you?
It really was a stunningly beautiful game.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to see it.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and just to see it moving as well with the lighting that was in there, and the time of day, and then the sun would go down and the lights would come on. We keep going. Actually, we've got. Oh, this is like the port area. So you've got. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's nice.
Oh,
Debug.
Yeah.
I don't know. Can people glean anything from that, Sam? Is that like, bad that I've left that there? I did think when I saw it.
He's saying it's fine, but he's not going to say it's not fine, is he?
So that's 60 frames per second.
Well, on PC, so it was like a cross-platform, wasn't it? It was developed initially for Xbox One, but then became like a cross-platform thing with Windows 10. So obviously on a Windows PC, spec'd up, it would run at 60.
Yeah.
But on Xbox One, it was capped at 30. But you could play with someone who was playing on a PC if you were on a console. It was, worked seamlessly. That's the kind of whole. I think the last one is just like a short video of accelerated day and night cycle.
To get busy,
The sun.
visit the smithy. Magnificent, mystical chef.
Oh, man. If there was one, I mean, we nailed lots of things, but the atmosphere in Bright Lodge was just like I would run in and just stand here and just listen to everything that was happening and watch people wandering by and eat chickens and
well, that was the thing, because Fable Legends was like essentially like a combat game, wasn't it? You'd go on a quest and it would be pretty full on for like 45 minutes. And the idea behind Bright Lodge is that you'd come back from a quest, and instead of like, I don't know about you, but like I get battle weary after that amount of time. So instead of switching off the game and playing something else for like a different change of pace, that they could get it while still staying within Fable Legends, and that's why Bright Lodge was here. You could kind of just wander around, do some chicken kicking, fishing, all that kind of thing, but it would still feed in.
Watch the sunset over the waterfall,
all that kind of stuff. But it was still, you still get something that you could then feed back into the main game loop. Yeah. So that was the idea.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I think that's the end of the slides.
Well, I guess that's that then. That was Steve's whole career in 35 minutes. That wasn't bad.
What are you doing now?
Well, that is a good question. So after I left Lionhead, I was working at another London studio called Lift London. So I was working on some HoloLens stuff, so that was good. I can't really say too much about it because it was for a commercial partner who paid Microsoft an amount of money for an experience, and you'd make a proof of concept demo in the space of 12 weeks, and then they would take that, show it off to people, with the aim to sort of develop that further. But that was really cool, obviously working on new technology like that, because it's not many people have got their hands on it because you still can't buy it in this country. And we never even had retail HoloLenses. We had just prototype versions. So I was working on that, and I was also working on again I can't say, but it's a major component of Windows.
I think it's been leaked.
a major component of Windows is getting some love. It's getting some love for this day and age, and is.
Someone just said it.
Shush. But anyway, October the 26th is when it's being revealed. So I've been working on that, but I've finished now, and at this moment in time, I'm not doing anything. I'm sort of thinking what I'm going to do next. But I have to say that having been the world's biggest VR skeptic. Obviously, when we were at Lift, they had all the Vive and the Oculus and all that kind of stuff set up, and it's completely won me over. So I'm hoping to get to that. I think if anything's going to bring it into the mainstream, it's going to be PlayStation VR. Whether
Which is on Thursday.
Well, yeah, but I still think it's going to be that kind of experience where am I in the mood for strapping myself into one of these things, because it is quite a solo experience. I think. Well,
isn't that? I mean, the challenge with VR is not only making a game that's really immersive and enjoyable, but also putting something on the screen that people can watch if they're not wearing a headset that they can still enjoy. So
I think that's it. Yeah, it's like with any new thing, there's an interesting set of design problems to kind of overcome there. Yeah. The main one for me is like navigation. How do you actually move around? Because if you just put a controller in your hand, that's it. You become instantly sick. Yeah. So you can't do that. But yeah, going to get more interactive with a good analogy is if you're in a haunted house and you've got the other players that on like some kind of companion app that are triggering stuff to leap out on you, that kind of thing. So that's kind of interesting. Yes, I don't know what I'm going to do next, but hopefully it might involve VR. That kind of interests me. I think with game design, I think motivation is kind of everything, and as long as you're doing something cool. Again, with the Sesame thing, even though I knew like most people wouldn't play it, it was a new set of problems to overcome, and it's that in itself is like an interesting challenge for me. So hopefully something interesting. Yeah.
In VR, would you say you're a skeptic of omnitreads for locomotion?
Of what?
Of omnidirectional treadmills. So like the Virtuix.
Do they like curve?
Yeah, those.
Yeah.
See, I've not come across this. So
E3, people go mad for it.
It's like a sort of circular plate, and you have sort of low friction shoes, and
it's
you walk
like
on it.
Right, okay. So it's like another peripheral. Again, it's like I'm sure it's like a good solution, but whether it's a mainstream solution, like
to keep in your living room.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. With like the Vive is clearly like the best experience at the moment out there, but it's like such an investment to. Okay, someone's disagreeing.
No, it's the best, but it's too expensive.
Oh, okay. It's too expensive. Yeah, you need too much space. You need cameras on tripods. It's room scale, that kind of thing. I think the PlayStation one, because it's console based. Developers know who what they're dealing with, not varying levels of PC performance. I think as long as developers distill what's good about VR and make it, the immersion is the main thing. As long as they can get that across with PSVR, I think they'll be onto something there. But yeah, whether it becomes mainstream enough,
I'm interested to see
I hope it does. Who knows? Yeah.
Any other questions, guys? Go for it.
I played an absolute ton of Fable Legends in beta.
Oh,
no way!
I loved it.
Dude! Thank
He
you.
works for the press! I could have done this! I can't believe
Could have saved it, man.
Oh,
Absolutely loved it. The one thing that always shocks me, I was just wondering if you guys knew if you're able to say, is that it never got entered into Xbox Preview, like the early access thing for Xbox. Like when that got announced, I was sitting in my office on E3 being like, by Fable Legends, here we go, it's going to be the first game.
And that's the
never
thing.
got put into it.
That's all it needed. It needed to be put in people's hands so they could, because people were so kind of like, whoa, hang on, is this a Fable game? I don't, this isn't my gig, I'm sorry, please.
I was wondering for you guys, like, if that was ever a discussion, just for me, because I was playing on the last day before the servers went down, I was like,
Oh man.
it's really upsetting.
Well, firstly, thank you.
Yeah,
for that,
absolutely,
seriously.
thank you.
Well, I'm assuming that. That was a discussion that was had.
It was well.
Not with me, obviously, but whether you caught wind of it.
I don't recall it being said, but I mean the beta with Legends was so strict because of the cross-platform element. Was my understanding that Microsoft really wanted to keep the whole thing kind of under wraps, and any leaking was really, really heavily kind of punished. So I don't know, but that was something that we absolutely learned from going to all the video game shows, you know, E3 and Gamescom and all of that kind of stuff, you'd have people come up behind you and you could hear them saying, oh, this isn't a Fable game, oh, I love Fable and this is nothing, I'm not interested. And every time I heard it, I'd be like, hey man, come play Fable. Like, this is a Fable game, you just don't realise it yet. And as soon as they played it, they loved it, and everyone would walk away loving it. The beta was only a few hundred people, like it was small. We might have got a little bit bigger, but at any one kind of time we were seeing tiny numbers. So yeah, it's just a really sad story.
Yeah.
The saddest.
I don't know, decisions were made. I think at the end of the day, the numbers didn't add up. They looked at the retention numbers and the cost of running a game like that, you know, as a service was astronomical.
AAA free to play is a silly combination of things.
Yeah. So but yes, thanks for playing.
Yeah.
Thank you.